I want us to address together some slander that's been going on since the college football season ended. There's a lot of thought and a lot of talk that is negative in nature around South Carolina Gamecocks head football coach Shane Beamer. And it sounds like this. Hey, 5-7 last year, he's on the hot seat. Hey, he's got to win this year. Other people go a little bit more personal and they say he's a gimmick. He whines to the refs. He's corny. He's quirky, all those things. They can't really compete in the SEC with him as the head coach. All those things are said based on this last year. And I want us to kind of acknowledge what happened last year, say that's not okay. It's not what we expect at South Carolina based on what you did the 2 years previous. But I don't think we should also be victims of the moment. Because this time last year, remember how we were talking about South Carolina? Remember how the college football public, the same people that are slandering Shane Beamer, would talk about him last year? Coming off of back-to-back top 10 wins to end the season over Tennessee and over Clemson. People saying, wait, South Carolina, are they a sleeper team to end up in the SEC championship? I'm just saying, could they push some teams maybe and find their way to Atlanta? Or there was a lot made around South Carolina that was pretty lofty based on how they finished the season last year. And then you have a bad year in 2023 and everyone's off the bandwagon and they're talking about Shane Beamer being fired. I think you can provide context to a situation without making excuses. And the context to me is they were bad/injured on the offensive line a lot of last year. Like, y'all, we saw them in person against Tennessee. It was bad. They cannot stop anybody up front. So it doesn't matter who you have at quarterback. It doesn't matter who you have at running back. It doesn't matter if you have a first-round wide receiver like Xavier Legette. It's hard to get them the football when you have like 1.5 Mississippis throw the football, when you have no concern about a team running the football consistently against you. Also, Juice Wells was a massive part of those upsets last year against Tennessee and against Clemson in 2022, rather. Didn't really have him healthy the entirety of the season. Using context again, you play in the SEC. This is hard. This is hard stuff coaching college football, period. But in the SEC, like, it is the monsoon of college football conferences. What I mean by that is it's hard to sail your boat through that thing if you got a few holes in it. And South Carolina, roster-wise, offensive line-wise especially, had a few holes on it. The defense wasn't great either. So my frustration and my pushback on all this hot seat talk is the past 2 years, Shane Beamer, before this season, had overachieved. Like, Vegas put out some numbers. I think he blew them out of the water both years, 7-6 and 8-5. And then you have one bad year after you develop some expectations, and people are like, he's not the right guy. Give up on him. And I think my question to that would be, well, what were you expecting? What were you expecting? Because I think your expectations have a direct correlation to your happiness when you subtract reality from it, or you add reality to it, rather. And I think the answer to what were you expecting, some folks would say some version of, well, what Tennessee did. We want to accomplish what Tennessee did last year. Like, okay, well, Josh Heupel's been a head coach now for 6 years. Shane Beamer just finished up year 3. Maybe what he is as a head coach today is going to be different than what he is as a head coach 3 years from now. Also, it's worth noting, if you want to capture that Tennessee magic, why was Tennessee so successful in 2022? Yes, they had, good weapons offensively. What they had in 2022, though, for my money, was Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. So if you hit at the quarterback position, that's where the magic starts. That's where you can really change the complexion of your season. And the folks in Columbia, they probably want me to speak quietly right now, but they got a guy in Lenora Sellers who they feel really excited about, has a ton of physical tools. He was named the starter not that long ago. I believe it was in the last week and a half ago. If Lenora Sellers hits how they think he could hit, maybe this discussion sounds different this time next year around South Carolina and the magic that they were able to bottle up. But I'm just trying to say here, don't compare your situation apples to apples to what Tennessee was or to what Kentucky is now. Like, those things have been built over the course of a little bit longer period of time. And the Josh Heupel thing, like I said, I really think that's a direct correlation to how they've recruited the quarterback position. I think the way that you build at South Carolina, the way you win at South Carolina, is by using the portal to kind of accent your roster and fill gaps, and then be able to recruit at the high school level over a sustained period of time. Last 2 classes for Shane Beamer, top 20. Right now in 2024, top 10 portal class. I think he's doing the right things. I think they're doing the right things in-house to South Carolina to get to ultimately where they want to go. But the biggest thing for me with Shane Beamer and all the hot seat talk and the way that he's viewed from a personal level. I think it's all about the win-loss goggles. And this is a tale as old as time in college football. This is something we've talked about a lot on this show. How you view your head coach is specifically viewed through, are they winning or are they losing? A great example of this is Dabo Swinney. If they're winning, Dabo's doing it his way. It's his culture. If they're losing, he's lame. He's outdated. He's too corny. Same thing with Shane Beamer. People say the same thing about Shane Beamer right now. When they were winning, he's throwing on the backwards hat and the sunglasses and vibing out with his guys in the locker room. He's a player's coach. He's cool. He's emotional. Wears his heart on his sleeve. And if they're losing, he's corny. He's yelling at the refs and they're losing. He's whiny. He's yelling at the refs and they're winning. He's passionate. You know who yells at refs in college football? Literally every single coach in the sport. Okay, so the win-loss goggles around Shane Beamer, I understand the thought behind it. It's a reality. It's what we deal with in college football. But let's not pretend that Shane Beamer hasn't done a good job at South Carolina to this point. To say he's on the hot seat going into this season, I think that is a wild mistake if South Carolina does make a move in another direction at the head coach position. And I think Shane Beamer is building something at South Carolina. Understand now, growth, when you build something, it's not linear. It's going to have a couple dips. It's going to have a couple of turns that you don't want it to take, but you give it enough time. I really do believe that South Carolina and Shane Beamer are heading in the right direction. Last thing I'll say, who else are you going to go get? You want to go get a coordinator? Tell me that's not going to hit the reset button for a year or two. We saw what the portal does when you hire a new head coach. I have to believe that Shane Beamer, at the very least, has a ton of buy-in from his roster. Who's going to do a better job than Shane Beamer with what they've done right now? It's a building process. You hire somebody new, whether it be a head coach from the G5 level or a coordinator or whatever, you hit the reset button, I believe, on your roster. I think you hit the reset button on the growth that you've already got in-house at South Carolina. It landed a 5-star in each of the last 2 classes, y'all. He's doing something there. Give him some time. He can attract talent. And I think over the course of the next couple of years, if given the opportunity, South Carolina will be in that conversation for one of the top teams in the SEC. If he has the time now, if he has the runway to build his roster how he wants to. I believe in Shane Beamer. I believe in what he's doing there. And I think the hot seat talk, quite frankly, just ridiculous. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.